So hello everybody. Bonjour tout le monde. Mon nom est Peter O'Brien et je suis le président du conseil du concours international d'études de cas MBA John Molson. Et c'est mon plaisir de vous accueillir ici cet après-midi. My name is Peter O'Brien. I'm the chair of the board of the John Molson MBA International Case Competition, and I'm delighted to welcome you all here this afternoon. We have three finalists.
Nous avons trois finalistes.
Kaiserslautern, Minnesota, and South Carolina.
Minnesota,
and
South Carolina.
This is after an intense week of competition where we started off with 36 teams, 36 world-class teams, which got down to 9 semi-finalists, and after last night's competition, yesterday afternoons, we are now down to 3 finalists. I'd like to express a particular word of welcome to those of you who are seeing us and hearing us online through our streaming of this competition, particularly the friends of the 3 finalists who have a chance to see us from a distance. Didn't have to jump on your airplanes last night to get in here from Kaiserslautern, for instance. You will hear presentations from each of those schools starting at 1:45, and the order of presentation will be first South Carolina, secondly Kaiserslautern, and third University of Minnesota. For those of you who are not familiar with our format, they will present for a period of 25 minutes before a panel of 5 judges who will be seated in front of them here. After that, there's a 15-minute question and answer period, interchange between the judges and them, and then a short break, and then the next team will come in, and then the third team. After that, the judges retire, deliberate, reach a decision on who is first place, silver and bronze, and the results will be announced at the latest at 10 p.m. tonight during the course of our closing banquet. So those of you who are from afar, and we are not streaming the closing banquet, but the results will be conveyed to you electronically at exactly the same time. So you'll have it either on your apps or online on our website. We have a very interesting case today relating to Deloitte. It's a contemporary case, and we thought it would be useful for the audience if you had a little explanation of what it's all about before we start hearing the participants. Dr. Pierre Brunet, who is a longtime board member, this competition has been going for 33 years now, and Dr. Brunet has been involved with it for, well, 33 years. So he's going to come up and walk you through the case, and then hopefully at 1:45 or close to it, the judges will arrive and the first presenting team will be here. So I hope you have a good time this afternoon.
J'espère que vous aurez une bonne après-midi.
Bonjour, mesdames, messieurs. Ça me fait plaisir d'être ici, vous donner un bref aperçu du cas de Deloitte. That's how you say it in French, Deloitte. My job here has been asked by the organizers to give you a very brief overview of the case that you'll be seeing today. Maybe you could close the door then, if you don't mind, Pat. Good idea. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
All right. Don't want to give away the secrets to the teams before they get up here, right? We'll confuse them. We'll confuse them. So this is a case about Deloitte, global consultancy firm, accounting firm, 4 major businesses, very large, $32 billion in revenues. One of the top 4, along with KPMG and Price Waterhouse and Ernst & Young, and they control that market for audit, for financial services, for tax advice, for consultancy advice. It's been there for a long time. They are steeped in tradition, and they're getting a threat from upstarts. Upstarts called crowdsourcing, people who organize folks with expertise around the world through the internet to solve a business problem for a client who otherwise might go to Deloitte. And that threat is not large right now, but it's getting bigger. And you'll hear about that from the perspective of a man named Steve Johnson, who is the Chief Innovation Officer. for Deloitte, and his task is to protect Deloitte from external threats and to develop innovative business models for the future. So the issue and what the judges will be looking for is how these students present the problem, whether it's an immediate problem or whether it's a long-term problem, because right now it's not very big, but it's growing very quickly. And how they address the problem and what they suggest Deloitte should do to counteract the upstarts who are producing very good consultancy and accountancy and financial services advice faster and cheaper than the big guys can do it. So there's an external threat, a whole different business model, and Deloitte needs to react to it. So the judges will be looking to see how the students present the problem, how immediate it is. It's not a panic time yet, because Deloitte has $32 billion in revenue, and the whole crowdsourcing group has $275 million. It's very small. But the growth rate's about 74 or 75% per year, so it won't be small for long. But one of the things that judges are going to be looking for is, yes, so we recognize it's a problem. We need to find a new business model to counteract that problem. We're in a hurry, but we're not in a panic. And how can we best use the expertise we have in-house to counteract that model and stay alive and stay healthy? So that's what you'll see. And the more detail the presenters give to the judges, the better the presentation. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being part of this competition. It's always nice to see a lot of people around. And good luck to everybody. Thank you.
Et beaucoup de bonne chance à tout le monde.
We would like to bring in the team from the University of South Carolina into the room.
L'équipe de l'Université de South Carolina, de Caroline du Sud.
Welcome to the 2014 John Molson MBA International Case Competition. My name is Melina Suchan, and I will be the coordinator for the presentation of the University of South Carolina, Darla Moore School of Business. First, I would like to ask that everyone please turn off any electronic devices and cell phones. I will now kindly ask our distinguished judges to introduce themselves.
Bonjour, mon nom est François Giroux. Je suis chef des opérations de Novik, fabricant de parements extérieurs. My name is François Giroux. I am Chief Operating Officer of Novik. We manufacture exterior polymer cladding.
Hello, my name is Mary Larson. I have my own consulting firm. I do strategic advisory work for CEOs of major corporations globally.
Good afternoon. My name is Ken Brooks. I'm a partner at EY. I'm also a past finalist, so congratulations. I know exactly what the last week has been for you guys. Good luck.
Dominique Vincent. I'm Vice President and Portfolio Manager with McDougall, McTeer.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Sharp. I'm Vice President of PNC Bank Canada, a wholly owned sub of PNC Bank Pittsburgh.
Thank you. I would like to remind the University of South Carolina that the team will have a maximum of 25 minutes to present its case. I will indicate to the team when 5 minutes and 1 minute are remaining. I would ask the team to please acknowledge that you have seen the signs. After the presentation, the judges will have a maximum of 15 minutes for questions. I will indicate to the judges when 5 minutes and 1 minute is remaining. I would like to wish the presenting team good luck. Bienvenue au concours international d'études de cas MBA de John Molson 2014. Mon nom est Melina Suchan et je suis votre coordonnatrice pour la présentation de l'Université de Caroline du Sud. S'il vous plaît, éteignez tout appareil électronique ou téléphone cellulaire. Merci et bienvenue à nos juges qui se sont déjà présentés. Je veux souligner à l'Université de Caroline du Sud que l'équipe a un maximum de 25 minutes pour présenter son analyse. Je vais signaler à l'équipe lorsqu'il restera 5 minutes et puis encore quand il restera 1 minute. J'aimerais demander à l'équipe de m'indiquer qu'ils ont bien vu le signal. Après la présentation, le panel de juges a un maximum de 15 minutes pour les questions. Je vais signaler au juge lorsqu'il restera 5 minutes et encore à 1 minute. J'aimerais souhaiter bonne chance à l'équipe.
If I may, before we begin, I believe we were supposed to be given a clicker to drive the slideshow. Okay. Do it all from this one. Is this going on? This one? To go forward, this is bad. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Board of Directors. First and foremost, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here with us this afternoon as we speak a little bit about some recent developments that we have seen in our industry and how we are going to respond to those changes. My name is Stephen Johnson. I'm the Chief Innovation and Growth Officer for our global operations, and along with my strategic development team, Hayward Grimble, Rachel Brown, and Hannibal Scipio, we're going to rehash our assessment of the current situation and then share with you our plan for how we feel we can best position ourselves to move forward.
So when you walk out of the room today, we'd like you to leave with a very clear understanding of 3 things. The first is our recommendation for our reaction to this new industry landscape that we're seeing. Second is our implementation plan for enacting this recommendation. And lastly, a budget, timeline, and some additional considerations that we need to keep in mind as we move forward.
We've prepared an agenda to maximize our time here this afternoon. As we said before, we're going to share with you our own assessment of the current situation and some recent developments we've seen in the market. We're going to share with you some alternatives that we devised to how to best proceed and how to position ourselves for continued growth and leadership in our industry. And then finally, we're going to share with you our implementation plan for the alternative that we finally selected. This is not a decision that we came to lightly, so we're also going to share with you some rationale for why we chose that alternative. And then finally, we're going to share with you the timeline, the budget, and wrap up briefly before we field your questions.
So really quickly to start this off, we take a 30,000-foot overview of the landscape itself. Crowdsourcing as a whole is a very old, antiquated idea. However, with the internet, it's become much more quick, readily accessible to the masses. So with that in mind, many more opportunities became available. And more recently, what we're seeing now is that crowdsourcing is not just a residential or hobby type activity. It's become more of a professional realm. And as you see to the right over here, there are 4 types of platforms: Wisdom of the Crowd, Micro Work, Macro Work, and Inducement Prize Contests.
So when we look at the product life cycle, we know that the traditional professional services industry is somewhat mature. We've really reached a maximum capacity, and organic growth is getting a lot more difficult. We're really seeing firms grow more through mergers and acquisitions. However, the crowdsourcing professional services are relatively new. They're in the growth stage, and they're seeing a lot of really exponential growth and a lot of innovation.
So as you're well aware, our business model operates, basically we can break it down into 4 different views. Our core competencies are obviously the professional services that we offer to our customers, but another one of our core competencies is how we deal with those customers. We build relationships. We make them see the value in the services that we offer, and then we translate that into real, attainable, measurable value for them as well. And finally, we do that through our innovative global solutions. We feel that these 3 core competencies are going to be the key to not only continually leading our own sector, but to dealing with new entrants to our market. Our current financial position, we had revenues last year of $32.4 billion, and that broke down to a revenue per employee of roughly $134,000. So as we move on to our current situation.
All right, so looking at Deloitte, the professional service landscape is changing. We're seeing crowdsourcing come into the market more and more, and we're beginning to compete a little bit on certain projects. There's beginning to be some overlap, and it's unclear how great the overlap and the risk to our firm is going to be in the future.
So we have a problem before us, and essentially it is that we're currently aware that 4 of our firms right now have lost multi-million-dollar contracts to these crowdsourcing firms. And the crowdsourcing industry as a whole is experiencing explosive growth, most notably 74% in 2012. And finally, the deliverables from these firms have been inconsistent, but at the top tier, they seem to be pretty comparable to industry standards.
So moving forward, we really need to define what success looks like for Deloitte. Of course, we want to compete successfully against these new crowdsourced professional services firms, but we also want to address our clients' increasing needs for global solutions and responsiveness in a very quick manner that we're not always able to do. And lastly, we want to mitigate the risks that are posed by these new entrants into the market.
So with that frame of mind, we need to kind of take a step back and see what's really going on here. At the end of the day, the losses we've experienced to this point won't kill us. However, the crowdsourcing phenomenon is something that has shown the potential to disrupt entire sectors and industries. We are currently experiencing what we consider to be tremors in the industry. What we need to figure out is whether these tremors are just going to go away or if they're a sign of something coming in the coming years.
So with that in mind, we have to assess what is going to be the factors for success in this industry. So we've identified 5 particular things. First, reputation. Deloitte is one of the largest, or is the largest consulting firm, has a great reputation. And a lot of times clients will make the decision or factor into the decision the reputation of the company, the firm. Quality. Quality is of grave most importance. Companies who are seeking out other consulting firms, et cetera, they're going to depend upon the quality of the work to be at a certain level. Third, client relationship management. We must maintain ties with clients or what have you. It's easier to maintain a client than it is to acquire new clients. Fourth, market responsiveness. We must respond to the market rapidly before other players, other competitors, respond before we do. And lastly, profitability. We are a business. We are for profit. So we have to ensure that whatever our endeavors are, we'll draw a profit going forward.
So with all these factors in mind, we'd like to present you with a brief time horizon of how we think our reaction and our movements from this stage should move forward. For the first year, we think we should assess and initiate an action plan based on this new threat in our industry. In years 2 to 3, we want to complete the development of the solutions that we will explain to you later in this presentation. And in years 3 through 5, we hope to expand market share significantly through these solutions.
So to really understand how to best move forward, we had to look at how companies compete in the professional services sector. We ourselves focus mainly on focus and differentiation out of the 3 methods of competition. These crowdsourcing firms that are coming into this industry now are focusing on cost and speed to the customer. They are alleging that they can provide the same value that we do at a fourth of the cost and in a quicker time. And other players that are important to consider are more specialized firms like the Ernst & Youngs of our industry that have a very more specific and defined focus and aren't as widely covered across the spectrum of professional services.
So with every endeavor, we must take in consideration the stakeholders involved. So here, if you look here, we have the big 4. They are stakeholders, they are our competitors. How we respond in the market will govern how they may respond and vice versa. So we have to take that into consideration. 2, crowdsourcing consulting firms. They are stakeholders in that they will be affected by our decisions. As well, management within our company. We need to ensure that our decisions, the management is either on board or how they will respond accordingly. As well, clients and SMBs, small and medium businesses. They are important here as well because typically we have our clients are enterprise clients, yet the crowdsourcing firms are more so in the small and medium business space.
So looking at a brief SWOT analysis of our firm, our internal strengths are a great brand image, very high quality, expertise on a broad scope, in a broad scope of areas and services. However, we do have some weaknesses. Our legal structure can make things a little bit difficult to navigate with each country having its own legal entity and firm. Our size restricts our ability to move as quickly as some of these crowdsourcing firms are.
Yet there are opportunities as well. The legal practice area is an area that we can move into and grow as a potential business space. The crowdsourcing market itself is an opportunity if we finesse it in the correct manner and get involved in that particular space. And technology. Technology is a crucial part, a crucial opportunity for us to take advantage of. However, with that, there are threats. Eroding margins because of small, lean players, and public available information. I mean, we lose some of our luster, per se, the more information that's available to the masses.
So looking at the crowdsourcing market, it has seen incredible growth in the last couple of years. Last year, the market grew by 74%, and it is expected that this growth is going to accelerate in the future. Our projections for the next 5 years have the market growing to over $1 billion annually in just 2 years and over $7 billion in the next 5. So quite frankly, this is a market that we can't just ignore. We need to make an entrance into it, and we need to address it head on. So who is our customer in terms of who are we competing with the crowdsourcing firms for? Our customers tend to be, as Hannibal said, large, medium-sized corporations, governments, groups that have large and complex problems and are concerned with the image of who they are hiring or the accountability of who they're hiring. They want to be able to say, we hired Deloitte. Whereas the crowdsourced professional services are going after more of the small and medium enterprises. And we're starting to see some large corporations, NASA has done some things, as has IBM and Accenture. They often have fewer financial resources and are competing on a more limited basis.
So in moving forward with our analysis, we first decided to eliminate some solutions that we felt were completely untenable. Given the growth of this market, we cannot ignore the movement of crowdsourcing in our industry. We can't pretend that this is not going to change things in some way and hope that business as usual will suffice. Secondly, we can't take the Deloitte brand into crowdsourcing. That's not the image that we want to project to the world, and that's not where our strengths are. And lastly, we don't want to acquire any crowdsourcing firms that have connections to our competitors. We want to keep our culture strong and work from there.
So the first alternative that we considered in moving forward would be an organic growth strategy. And essentially what we would focus on is expanding our financial advisory function to increase our top-line revenues. One, to take over the top spot in terms of top-line revenue, but also to begin varying our revenues as a bit of sustainability. We would also leverage our existing tax customer base to drive customers into the financial advisory function and explore corporate partnerships with existing clients to perform financial advisory with their employees. And finally, a region that we would focus on with this strategy would be the Asian Pacific. It's a high growth market for us, and it's poised to continue that growth for several years moving forward.
Alternative 2 is inorganic growth. We can look at acquiring some of our competitors, smaller competitors, for example, BCG or Towers Watson. We can focus as well, competing on terms of cost and speed. That's not typically our particular space, but that's an option as well with Alternative 2. And lastly, we can also attempt to compete directly head-to-head with the crowdsourcing firms.
So in our third alternative that we considered would be a grow and protect strategy. First, we would expand our current product service offerings. And we would also hope to develop a centralized knowledge management platform. Although we face difficult global and complex solutions, there's not really a need to reinvent the wheel every time. So if we can increase our speed of the deliverables to the customer by relying on work that has been done by other regional firms, then we need to rely on that as a central unit. And we'd also like to add the human element to our value proposition. What we akin this crowdsourcing consulting to is basically a conversation via text. Everyone knows that there are context clues that you gain from a face-to-face conversation, and a lot is really lost in translation sometimes when it comes to conversations over email or text message. So there is a value to our knowledge and our relationship with the customers that we need to convey. And finally, we would hope to institute a quality assurance program. Something that we can show our valued customers that if they do choose to do one of their smaller projects with a crowdsourced solution, they can bring it to us, and for a fee, we will tell them some of the weaknesses they could have with this current solution. So we evaluated these alternatives based on the 5 critical success factors that Hannibal shared with you earlier. And we related each of these in a stoplight analysis to our current position. So where you see green, we feel that we will improve our current position, and where you see red, we may actually decline. And the yellow would indicate about a maintenance of the status quo. As you can see, our grow and protect strategy, we feel, would improve us in each of these 5 areas.
So Operation Protect and Grow. First, we feel we should acquire a crowdsourcing company, and we'll discuss later how we came to our recommendation for this. We also believe that expanding our service offerings is going to be crucial moving forward. And technological development. Our innovation has to encompass the communication between our market firms and not just enhance our abilities at a client site.
So when we're looking at possible acquisition or targets to acquire in the crowdsourcing space, we looked at 10EQS, GLG, and Kaggle. They are the ones who have really been making a splash in the industry and have gotten on our radar at this point. We also analyzed them using a stoplight analysis based on a different set of factors. First, it would be synergies with our core competencies. It doesn't make sense to really acquire someone that works in a space that we aren't familiar with. Our brand is excellence, and if we can't oversee that and ensure that excellence is being delivered, then that's not something we would ultimately hope to pursue. And then finally, ties to consulting. If a crowdsourcing firm was founded by one of our competitors or an ex-employee of one of our competitors, that is not something that we would look to mix. And then the size of the crowd that has been sourced, so what their base is looking like. And then finally, their venture capital funding.
So our strategy for GLG, which we'll explain in detail, is to create a wholly owned subsidiary that's going to acquire and manage GLG. GLG is going to continue with their current operations. What they're doing is working, and it's not our strength, but what we are doing is diversifying our portfolio. So we're not going to rebrand them. We're not going to interfere with their management. However, we will have a nice relationship with them that involves revenues.
So in the vehicle for exactly how we will acquire this company is important. We believe that Deloitte Central should create a special purpose entity, essentially, to acquire GLG that would be funded equally by the regional firms. We will maintain, as Rachel said, separate branding and management. So essentially, it's just having it in our pocket and being able to utilize their services in very specific instances. If one of our customers comes to us with a project that is either too small or that's just not cost effective, we can tell them that we can take their business and complete it in a way that is quicker and cost effective without really necessarily sharing the way that we will do this, and that would be accomplished by outsourcing it to our GLG arm.
So with this in mind, we know that quality is one of our major focuses. As we move forward with GLG as an arm of the company, we are going to, when we basically outsource these services to GLG, we are going to review the solutions that come back to make sure that they all meet our quality standards, and these will always have the certificate of quality from Deloitte on them. However, for some of our more valued clients that may be using other crowdsourced solutions, we'd like to provide a review structure based on a fee that they can pay so that we can let them know maybe that the strategies they're receiving are not as high quality as the ones they receive from us, and kind of re-emphasize the customer relationship that we have with them, that we're willing to look after their business interests if they go to a competitor. And it also gives us the opportunity to point out the weaknesses in our competitor and emphasize our human personal knowledge of their corporation and their corporate culture, which these crowdsourcing firms just do not have. We're also going to expand our service offerings. We see that there is a lot of opportunity in both the IT implementation and legal spaces. Right now we're offering audit, tax, consulting, and corporate finance services, but IT system implementation is a growing field. As IT systems get larger and larger, people no longer can employ their resources to undertake a major shift without a lot of help. Sorry, me again. Research and development, we believe we're going to have to do some investment in order to reach some of the goals that we have here, especially our knowledge repository. We believe that we should develop a platform that, while we do have some sharing between member firms right now, we believe that it's not flexible enough, it's not responsive or easy enough to use. Because with increased ease of use, we will see a faster turnaround with production from our different consulting teams that are working in different areas. If they can instantly find the results that they're looking for or projects that mirror in some ways the project that they're working on, we can increase their speed and hopefully get our associates back out of this office and into another one, billing more per year.
So we have the idea for the Vault, knowledge management platform. Specifically, the idea is to have a centralized repository of previous cases, client information, et cetera, that's internal to our business. And also it can be federated or duplicated in various locations around the globe with our various firms. One of the other advantages as well we would create with this platform is mobile access. We know that people are on the move a lot. And having that mobile capability is a key part of how quickly you can access data and use it to your advantage. And lastly, analysts can create, share, and utilize the various projects in the past or currently to increase their turnover rate as far as work production. With this in mind as well, we also have to take consideration security. Intellectual property is of vital importance. We have to ensure that the information we possess is not stolen or compromised, as well as access rights will go with that, as well as non-disclosure agreements.
So when we get into how we need to manage our relationships with our customers, moving forward, education is going to be very important. We need to let them know that there are risks involved with utilizing crowdsourcing operations at this point in time. One has been a demonstrated inconsistency of the quality of the deliverables. Two would be that these companies are very new. In a lot of ways, they are growing. And the people that are doing it aren't aware of their specific business needs or culture or really their goals. It's just some person somewhere formulating a solution for one part of their problem. And in terms of convenience, we need to let them know that smaller management projects can now be accomplished through the Deloitte brand. However, those will be actually processed through our GLG arm.
So looking at our business from a regional perspective, we've seen the strongest growth in the Asia-Pacific region and in Latin America, both having over 15% year-over-year growth last year alone. Overall, growth has been relatively strong, though the Europe, Mideast, and Africa has lagged behind our average growth rate and the growth rates of all of our other markets.
So one potential example target within the Asian Pacific region would be Burma or Myanmar. It's a country with an abundance of natural resources that is very attractive at this point to foreign direct investment. Corporations are moving into the area and expanding their operations. And we believe that if we could become cultural and location experts with this country, that we could facilitate a lot of operations and expansion into that area, which would be a huge source for growth for us.
Of course, there's going to be human resources implications for anything that we do that changes the structure of the way we compete. We need to increase our revenue per employee, and we understand this, and we hope that our technological innovations with our new knowledge repository will help us do that. It will be a slow increase as we become more familiar with the new platform and begin to really use it in earnest. We also propose that benched employees, employees that are not currently on a project and are awaiting their next assignment, can also contribute to the quality assurance analysis that we're proposing to do for crowdsourcing firms, including GLG. Lastly, increasing staff in the Asia-Pacific region is going to be under the jurisdiction of those regional market firms. So this is something that we are going to have to work with them in order to express our desire to move strongly into the area, but they will have to undertake that.
So looking at a timeline of our proposed actions, we intend to try to buy GLG in 2013 and begin our resource refocus and advance the analyze and sort of evaluate the GLG-Deloitte relationship and how that will function. In 2014, we will begin the global rollout of our assurance program and the employee integration into this program. We will also initiate our legal and IT service offerings. And then from 2015 to 2017, we will continue the global rollout as is necessary on a market-by-market basis. So what is all of this going to cost? So what everyone wants to know at some point. We have come up with 3 scenarios, a low estimate, sort of a best case estimate, a high, worst case, and a likely. We are projecting that the likely cost of this will be $186 million. These numbers are in thousands. And most of that cost will be the purchase of GLG. So, of course, how are we going to pay for it? We're going to use Deloitte's standard capital mix of a third debt, a third operating income, and a third of cash on hand. And this will allow us to maintain our standard operational costs. Okay? So looking at our projected revenues, we have estimated that while revenue will grow slowly in the first couple of years, that by 2017 we will have added over $1 billion to our top line revenue through all of our expanded services and the GLG company.
So there are some risks we should consider as we move forward. First would be the continuation of margin erosions. As our profits decline and our costs stay the same or increase, we're going to have less profitability on a per employee basis. Okay, thank you.
Well, at this time, we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much for a great presentation. In your recommendation of acquiring GLG, there are 2 things that I would like for you to comment on the impact on profitability. One is that you want to add a human element, whereas GLG and the other competitors don't. And you also want us to cover for any quality issues on those customers of record of ours, and not for the other customers of GLG that aren't customers of ours. So how do you reconcile that with keeping competitive and profitable?
If I may, we are advocating sort of a Chinese wall approach between the Deloitte brand and GLG. Deloitte would be able to utilize GLG's resources on a per ad hoc basis if necessary. However, we would only use GLG in those instances. GLG would continue to operate as its own entity. We would give them the freedom to continue to expand in the crowdsourcing market and really respond and grow in ways that they think that market is demanding. However, we feel that it is a space that is going to experience extreme growth, and the revenues from that could grow into our own, or could add to our own bottom line. Did I answer all of your question?
No. My question is, we will be assuming 100% of the risk for our customers that we will channel through GLG, assume 100% of the cost for the human element for those customers of ours to use the GLG. How is that a profitable proposition for us?
Ultimately, we just have to believe in ourselves. Our brand is one that is built on excellence, and we won't put our name on a product. We will do what is necessary to make sure that the customer's needs are met and an effective solution to their problem is created, no matter who is ultimately performing some of the steps in between.
I have a related question to that. If I were client X and I came to you with a complex problem, part of which might be solved by CLG, would you disclose to me that part of the issue was being tackled by CLG and make that transparent to me? Or would it be under the Deloitte brand?
We would explain to them that we have acquired an entity that is able to perform some of these smaller services at a reduced cost. But it would be the same quality and product that they would as if we ourselves, ultimately we will approve all of the work. Yes.
As DT's global COO, numbers are close to my heart, and I look at the strategy that you're suggesting that we adopt on a global basis. Our growth rate for our overall business is ranging 6 to 8%, so larger than the entire market share of the crowdsourcing marketplace. Yet you're advocating that we spend approximately $170 million to buy GLG within the next year, when you've really labeled this as a longer-term issue. Is that really the appropriate use of our capital, given our existing growth rate across our entire business units, on the one hand? And two, what should we be doing in terms of assessing the viability of the market over the longer term before jumping in and buying GLG?
Well, when talking about the use of our capital and entering into the crowdsourcing market, our fear is that as the crowdsourcing market continues to grow at a truly exponential rate, that our market in general and our revenue in particular are going to be negatively affected in terms of growth. I mean, as more and more companies look to the crowdsourcing, they aren't going to be coming to us, and so that market, it can take directly from ours. And so entering in with GLG, while a little bit of a longer term play, gives us the ability to make sure that we are moving forward with the industry as a whole and positioning ourselves for continued leadership. Now,
second part of the question was assessing GLG and what do we need to look for in making that assessment before we put out $170 million.
Well, Hannibal, where are you? Oh, there you are. Could you go to the acquisition criteria, please? So again, we identified a number of factors that we're going to be looking for. First, we want to have synergies within our own core business. But the most particular aspect of GLG that was attractive to us was the breadth of experts that they had developed. They cover a wide number of industries that we deal with, especially through our clients. And their overhead is relatively low. And if I may add one thing to your first part of your question about the price, we believe, and in the words of the great Wayne Gretzky, we need to skate where the puck is going, not where it is right now. As this industry continues to grow, multiples will become higher, the asking price will become higher. And on the grand scheme of things, this is a significant investment, but it's one that we believe is enough to mitigate the potential risk that we face going forward.
You talked about the vault. Is the vault a source of information that will be made available to our clients under our branding, or it's only for internal use?
This is something only for internal use. It's something that our associates and partners can use to see the results of other associates and partners' actions. What we're hoping to make the vault is a way to speed up the research process for all of our associates in order to really address our clients' growing need for a quick turnaround.
And you don't see any branding issues with becoming owners of GLG, having the liability, and then having the consulting on the other side to make sure that the information is right?
GLG will not have access to Deloitte's intellectual property because they will continue to work in a crowdsourced way and they're doing their own hiring and screening. We will not be taking on the liability of sharing our intellectual property with them.
Furthermore, we will maintain the company's structural practice of sort of creating a separate entity so that any legal liability is limited to that particular legal entity and the broader company could not be threatened by any inactions or failures of GLG.
Good afternoon. The question I have is, I didn't know GLG was for sale, and what if they say no?
Well, we do have a contingency plan if Hannibal could switch to that, please. So what we'd be looking toward, this is something that we may have to take more of a holding pattern, wait and see approach, but if we are not able to acquire an acceptable entity within the crowdsourcing sector, then we would have to look at a potential adaptation of our fee structure. We would have to look to possibly shift away from long-term service contracts to more of an ad hoc per project basis where we could give some flexibility in terms of our fee structure to customers that are looking for that. And then finally, we could also implement a similar ranking structure to what we have seen from one of the crowdsourcing entities, MBA.com, where we rank our analysts and our principals, and then we can base rates slightly higher or lower than the norm based on their own ranking.
You're suggesting a multi-pronged strategy, going IT, going legal, go crowdsourcing. How do you evaluate the risk that the other three out of the big four go crowdsourcing as well? How do you evaluate the risk of legal firms getting into M&A and auditing?
If we may transition to our competitor reaction slide. We do think it is likely that competitors will imitate us, specifically when we believe crowdsourcing becomes more and more attractive over the coming years. However, in the near term, we believe that most of the competitor reaction will be directed towards crowdsourcing entities and really trying to either run them out of the market or acquire their own. However, we believe that not all competitors will be as reticent to mix their own brand with that of the crowdsourcing provider, which could cause a host of liability issues and brand confusion for them. So that's something that we want to mitigate by avoiding that on our end. Yes.
If I could add just a little bit, I think that one other thing that we're very concerned with as far as competitive reaction is from the crowdsourcing firms themselves. As they find increasingly high-profile clients, such as NASA and eBay, they're going to be able to assert their legitimacy in a way that they're not able to right now, but it's definitely on the horizon. And as our legitimacy, brand, and reputation are something that we trade on very highly, as they grow in their reputations, we're going to be seeing increased competition from them as well.
If you let CLG operate independently, as I think you mentioned, what will you do to prevent them from going after your core clients?
As an entity of Deloitte, there certainly would be an understanding that cannibalization is not something that we are looking after. However, we need to really assess a threshold because revenues ultimately are coming back to the Deloitte bottom line, essentially, for smaller projects, for some that will not be cost effective or just really not large enough in scope for us to handle. That is something that we would not necessarily be opposed to as long as it receives that Deloitte quality assurance certificate.
So if I understand correctly, we'll own 100% of GLG, but they'll be run independently from the rest of the DT practice. As an auditor of a significant number of firms, we have independence considerations to think of. How will we make sure that we're compliant with securities regulations around independence if GLG is running independently?
That is certainly something that we will have to consider and something that legal, I believe, will have to take a look at. But it's independent in the sense that the management, direction, and growth
will be set by people who are boots on the ground, really that are in touch with the market. However, from an overall strategy, we believe that oversight and could be handled by our operating group.
Okay, so as a follow-up to that, what we're essentially going to do is layer an additional layer of costs in terms of supervision and quality to GLG. How will we be able to maintain our cost effectiveness then?
We sort of have thought about it as a, analogous to one of our country firms. So, you have the U.S. firm or the UK firm and so on and so forth, except for it's a global player because it's a globally operating firm. And so it's the costs and supervision are more analogous to the standards that we have for each of our independently operating firms, and not to someone's looking over their shoulder at every step and turn. It's the idea that we have certain standards, and irrespective of whether you're the auditing department of a particular country or the new legal department or GLG, we're going to require that our work and our employees' conduct is at a certain level.
Could you just clarify for me what Myanmar has to do with outsourcing, or are they totally separate issues here?
Absolutely. I apologize for the confusion. We felt that the Asian Pacific region was one where growth opportunities existed, and it has nothing to do with outsourcing. We felt that that is a particular market where we could bring our services and get in touch with our corporate clients that are making investments in the area and win their business by becoming experts on the intricacies and uniqueness of that market.
Who will be responsible within the firm for JLJ? Where do you fit it? Will it be the consulting group that will be responsible for JLJ, or where do you fit it in the structure?
Ultimately, it'll be the chief executives that will have direct reports that feed up through that organization, similar to any of our other regional firms. The operating group, myself included, would be in charge of oversight at a high level.
You indicated that we could look at buying some other consulting firms. I think you mentioned Towers as an example. Given that the overall outsourcing market is 1% of our annual revenue, make the case to me that we shouldn't be spending more of our time looking at a multi-billion-dollar acquisition to get more differentiation between us and PwC. In 50 seconds.
Okay. Well, our value, as we know, many of our markets are very mature. So the only way we're going to achieve growth is through long-term sustainable growth. Inorganic growth is going to provide a bump initially, but again, that comes with increased costs, merger of cultures, and a number of other difficulties that come along with that. Also, at that point, there would probably be an excess of transition costs that would overall decline the attractability of the investment.
And from a financial perspective, you expressed some reticence of spending $175 million to purchase GLG, and it's a new market entrant for us. We have to merge conflicting cultures.
Thank you.
Thank you to the University of South Carolina. Merci à nos juges. We will now be taking a short break, and we will continue with the second presentation at exactly 2:40. Thank you.